Here we have 5 substandards. 3A is loyalty, prudence, and care. And this obviously is loyalty, prudence, and care to and for clients. Then 3B is fair dealing. 3C is suitability. 3D is performance presentation. And 3E is preservation of confidentiality. This case is related to 3A, loyalty, prudence, and care. And just as a quick refresher, I will read this standard out for you. Members and candidates have a duty of loyalty to their clients and must act with reasonable care and exercise prudent judgment. Members and candidates must act for the benefit of their clients and place their clients' interests before their employers or their own interests. Now the case. Maste is the sole director of Dove Services, or Dove, a firm that sells financial products and advice. Maste asks Dove's authorized representatives to incorporate the Dove client protection policy into their contracts with clients. The protection policy's terms, number 1, excuse Dove and its authorized representatives from various liabilities arising from their failure to act in a client's best interest. 2. Relieve Dove and its authorized representatives of their duty to conduct suitability analyses of clients and investments. And 3. Lead clients to believe that they cannot make claims against Dove or its representatives for violating securities law. Maste's actions A. violate the CFA Institute Code and Standards. B. are appropriate because Dove and Maste fully disclose the terms of the Dove client protection policy to clients. And C. are appropriate because Dove and Maste are free to negotiate the terms of advisory agreements with clients. Now, this is fairly straightforward, even though the company is clearly disclosing the contract. The contract itself is problematic because the contract is taking away the rights of clients and therefore violate the CFA Institute Code and Standards. So option A is the best answer. And this is even more obvious when we go over standard 3A. Continuing with standard 3A, Gayani is a commodities trader with a number of retail clients. Laube opens a self-directed foreign exchange retail account for which Gayani does not advise on any trades. Laube signs Gayani's standard customer agreement, which authorizes Gayani at his discretion to liquidate without notice any or all open positions in an account with insufficient margin. Laube initially purchases 2 currency contracts and sets her margin requirement to 4,000. Laube then places 2 additional pending limit orders that will execute if the contract trading prices reach a specified level. Shortly after placing the orders, Laube goes on an extended vacation. While she is away, execution on the first limit order occurs and the margin requirement increases to 6,000. Then the next limit price is reached and the second order executes, increasing the margin requirement to 8,000. Post trades, while Laube is still on vacation, her account balance drops to 6,900. Without notice, Gayani liquidates all positions in Laube's account, realizing a loss of 37,000 from the liquidation. So let's look at the options now. Gayani's actions A are appropriate because Guyanee followed the policy and procedures set forth in Loewe's client agreement. B. Violate the code and standards because Guyanee has a duty to act in the best interest of Loewe by protecting her financial position. And C. Are inappropriate because Guyanee would have met the requirement by liquidating only one foreign exchange contract position. Now, this is slightly tricky because we have a fair amount of losses, but if we look at the agreement, this agreement authorizes Guyanee at his discretion to liquidate without notice any or all open positions in an account with insufficient margin. And that's what Guyanee has done. Therefore, the best answer is A. Guyanee's actions are appropriate because Guyanee followed the policy and procedures set forth in Loewe's client agreement. This next case also has to do with 3A, loyalty, prudence, and care. Brong is hired as a financial advisor by a regional government entity. Brong helps the entity issue bonds, and in connection with the bond issues, he makes a number of trips to New York City to meet with rating agencies. The trips are usually planned for a Monday or Friday because the costs for weekend travel are lower. Brong's wife accompanies him on the trips, and they normally spend the weekend in New York City to enjoy sporting events, theater performances, and museums. Brong also frequently makes a number of train and hotel changes after a trip is booked to accommodate meetings with other clients. Brong submits his travel expenses to his supervisor, who deducts costs she believes are unrelated to the business purpose of the trip and submits the bills to the municipality for reimbursement. Which of the following expenses can most likely be billed to the government entity issuing the bonds? So keep in mind here that the government entity is the client, and we need to think about which expenses can be billed to the government entity. A. Brong's accommodation and meal expenses for the weekend days because the travel rates are less expensive over a weekend. So this sounds reasonable, but let's also look at the other options. B. Tickets to the sporting and theater events as long as they do not exceed a reasonable amount for business entertainment. Now, this is problematic because billing a client for sporting events, theater events just does not appear right. It has nothing to do with the actual travel. So B is not appropriate. C. Flight and hotel change fees that result from the regular course of Brong's business activities. Now, these changes happen because of meetings with other clients. Therefore, it would not be appropriate to charge the government entity. And therefore, the best option is A. Brong's accommodation and meal expenses for the weekend days because the travel rates are less expensive over a weekend. Now, since he is traveling over the weekend to reduce the airfare, obviously he will then need to stay in a hotel and pay for meals, so that being charged to the client is reasonable. Moving to standard 3B, fair dealing. According to this standard, members and candidates must deal fairly and objectively with all clients when providing investment analysis, making investment recommendations, taking investment action, or engaging in other professional activities. So here is the case now. Scherzer is the head of research at a large investment management firm. She publishes monthly recommendation update reports to communicate to clients any investment recommendation changes her firm has made. The reports are sent to clients via email on the first Friday of the month and posted on the firm's website the following Monday. The firm's internal policy is that a change in recommendation can only be made once a month through this report. Scherzer also publishes weekly reports that may lead a reader to infer that a recommendation will be changing. The monthly recommendation update reports are sent to all clients. However, clients who wish to receive the weekly publication must pay an annual fee of $1,000. This option is available to any client and is fully disclosed as part of every client agreement. To comply with the CFA Institute Code and Standards, Scherzer is required to A. do nothing because her actions comply with the code and standards, B. publish the monthly report on the firm's website at the same time it is sent to clients, and C. send the weekly reports to all clients at no additional charge. Now, this is slightly tricky. We might be tempted to think that all clients have to be treated the same way and that the website disclosure should be made at the same time as when the reports are sent to the clients. But keep in mind that the recommendations update report or the reports are sent to all the clients. So all the clients are treated the same way, and all clients have the option of paying $1,000 and getting extra service, and this is fully disclosed. So what the company is doing and what Scherzer is doing is in line with the code and standards. Therefore, the best option is A, which is that she is already complying with the code and standards. The reason the website does not need to be updated at the same time is the website is for the general public. Anybody can go see the website. And if the clients are getting information before it is posted on the website, that is fine. This is just the research of the company itself. Also, sending the weekly reports is okay because this is disclosed and any client can pay the extra money and get this extra service. So the best option is A. Moving to standard 3C, suitability. Now, this is a fairly long standard, so I want you to read this on your own if you don't fully remember it. But the basic idea with suitability is that investments should be made which are suitable for the clients, given the risk profile of the clients. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is that if you are a portfolio manager and you are overseeing a fund, then the investments that you make should be in line with the stated mandate of the fund. So that's a high-level summary of this particular requirement. Now let's come to the case. Marty is an asset manager in Puerto Rico, a U.S. territory. Residents of Puerto Rico receive significant tax advantages when they invest in local securities. To take advantage of the tax laws, Marty's firm offers its clients shares in a closed-end investment fund organized under Puerto Rico's financial laws and regulations that holds at least 67% local securities and is permitted to borrow against up to 50% of its assets. The fund is usually leveraged to the extent legally permitted. So this fund is usually up to 50% leveraged, which is a fairly high level of leverage. Many of Marty's clients have a modest net worth and conservative or moderate investment objectives. Marty persuades them to invest 85% or more of their assets in shares of the closed-end fund. Marty's actions, A, violate the CFA Institute Code and Standards, B, are appropriate because they take advantage of the fund's unique tax benefits for its clients, and C, are appropriate as long as Marty fully discloses the risks and benefits of the fund to his clients. Now, keep in mind that given the high level of leverage, this is very risky. The fund has a high level of risk, and we are also told that the clients have a modest net worth and they are conservative, or they have moderate investment objectives. So right off the bat, this does not look suitable for most clients. And if Marty is convincing clients or trying to persuade clients to put 85% of their assets in this fund, then that is problematic. It is a violation of standard 3C suitability. Therefore, the best answer is A, which is that Marty's actions violate the CFA Institute Code and Standards. It does not matter that he is taking advantage of this particular tax benefit. It doesn't matter that he is disclosing the risks and benefits. If the investments are clearly not suitable for clients, then that is a problem. The next case also has to do with 3C suitability. Dury is a registered financial advisor for retail clients. She is also a principal partner of Tabak Accountants. Dury helps many advisory clients switch from existing pension accounts to self-managed superannuation funds, SMSFs, that invest in direct residential property. When clients express interest in SMSFs, Dury accepts their reasoning and assumes that they have the time and expertise to manage these funds. She also reclassifies their investment objectives as growth to match the new investment strategy. Dury charges her clients for establishing the SMSFs and recommends that her firm, Tabak Accountants, prepare the client's annual accounts and tax returns. Dury's actions, A, violate the CFA Institute Code and Standards, B, are acceptable because she is following the directives of her clients, C, are acceptable if the services provided by Tabak Accountants are reasonable and the costs of services are competitive. Now here we are talking about suitability, and what's happening is that Dury is just accepting anything that the clients say. So if the clients say that they want to switch from the existing pension accounts to self-managed superannuation funds, she benefits from it, and she also makes recommendations that would benefit her firm. She doesn't look at whether these investments are suitable for her clients or not. And since she is not looking at the suitability of investments, she is violating the code and standards. Therefore, the best answer is A. Moving now to 3D, performance presentation. According to this standard, when communicating investment performance information, members and candidates must make reasonable efforts to ensure that it is fair, accurate, and complete. So now the case. Jurgen is the portfolio manager for the Volair Investment Management Fund, or VIM, a registered collective investment scheme, or CIS, organized under the laws of South Africa. VIM's 2022 regulatory disclosure and marketing material for the fund, produced by Jurgen, presents the annual investment performance data for the 2014 to 2020 period that is accurate and calculated correctly. The performance history is that of a composite of separate accounts that followed the strategy used by the VIM fund before the assets were moved to the CIS environment in 2021. In presenting the fund's performance history, Jurgen's actions, A, violate the CFA Institute Code and Standards, B, are appropriate because the investment performance is accurate, and C are appropriate as long as the performance calculations are net of fees. Now, this is a little bit tricky. Notice that the VIM fund was moved into the CIS environment in 2021. So this is the current state of VIM, that it is now in the CIS environment. However, the performance history is that of a composite of separate accounts that followed the strategy used by the VIM fund. So this history is not exactly that of VIM, which really came into the CIS environment in 2021. It is the performance history of a composite of accounts that followed a similar strategy or the same strategy. Now, this fact is not being disclosed, which means that the performance presentation is not 100% complete. And since it is not complete, it is a violation of the code and standards. And so A is the best answer. The next mini case has to do with Standard 3E, preservation of confidentiality. According to this standard, members and candidates must keep information about current, former, and prospective clients confidential unless the information concerns illegal activities on the part of the client or prospective client, or disclosure is required by law, or the client or prospective client permits the disclosure of information. So now let's read the case. Giddings is a compliance officer at GWH, a large broker-dealer and investment advisor. GWH maintains confidential information of its clients, such as names, addresses, phone numbers, account numbers, balances, and holdings. Giddings puts a number of policies and restrictions in place to address employees' access to and handling of this confidential information. Marsh works at GWH as a client services associate. He downloads client data to his personal server at his home to enable telecommuting. Marsh's server is hacked, and portions of the personal client information Marsh downloaded are posted for sale on the internet. Did either Marsh or Giddings violate the CFA Institute Code of Standards? So option A is that Marsh violated, B is that Giddings violated, and C is both Marsh and Giddings violated. Now, here, if we look at what Marsh did, there is no explicit permission that he has to download data to his personal server, but he did that, and obviously his personal server will not have the sort of protection that the company server would have. So he is opening up a potential problem here, and therefore Marsh is in violation. In general, both Marsh and his supervisor, who represents the company, and that is Giddings, the compliance officer, need to try and do everything possible to preserve the confidentiality of their clients. Now, in this case, Marsh is clearly at fault. And in fact, Giddings, the compliance officer, is also at fault because he has not put in place policies and procedures and systems that would make it difficult for the employees to download data. So it looks like Marsh downloaded the data quite easily. So there is a problem with the systems, and that issue is related to Giddings. Therefore, both Marsh and Giddings violated the code and standards. That is option C.